answers? I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
With this deal, the UK joins the United States in affirming that reciprocity and fairness is an essential and vital principle of international trade. The deal includes billions of dollars of increased market access for American exports, especially in agriculture, dramatically increasing access for American beef, ethanol, and virtually all of the products produced by our great farmers. In addition, the UK will reduce or eliminate numerous non-tariff barriers that unfairly discriminated against American products, but this is now turning out, I think, really to be a great deal for both countries because it'll be really great for the UK also. So they're opening up the country. Their country is a little closed, and we appreciate that. They'll also be fast-tracking American goods through their customs process, so our exports go to a very, very quick form of approval, and there won't be any red tape. Things are going to move very quickly both ways.
Both ways. That is President Trump announcing the first deal in a de-escalation of any trade tensions during the Trump administration as he's pushing tariffs on other countries to reach a level playing field. And we're going to get into this in more detail for you. And, of course, also a new pope selected. White smoke from the Sistine Chapel today. The vote is in, and they've got a new pope. We'll discuss that as well. In fact, we've got a lot to cover today. There's some details of this trade deal that you need to understand a little bit closer. And I remind you, you are with Larry Connors USA, where we do offer news, analysis, opinion, and education. You'll leave this hour with more information than you had when you started. As always, we thank you for joining us. Here we are on May 8th, 2025. 80 years ago today was VE Day, Victory in Europe, the end of the World War II across Europe. Victory in Japan would come in August. But 80 years ago today. And, of course, one of the prime targets of Hitler was the UK, bombing repeatedly London in night raids. An estimated 70,000 Brits were killed in those bombings. But here we have agreement today between the U.S. and Britain to find a level playing field that will benefit both nations. Reminding you, when we're on the air, we are, of course, on from 6 to 8 p.m. every Monday through Friday. And when we're on the air, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. And how do you do that? Well, you go to NewsTalkSTL.com, STL, NewsTalkSTL.com. You can get it as well. And you can also go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble and Facebook and Twitter. And you can go to Larry Connors USA Rumble and Facebook. And everything later goes up as a podcast, available at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, and Larry Connors USA Facebook. Now, again, in reference to what we're seeing in the trade deal at this point, I will also tell you that later in this hour, we're going to be joined by a guest who's the author of a new book, The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk. Of course, many are questioning if he really has a leadership ability or if he's just doing a shell game. The author of this book will be coming up in this hour. In reference to the trade deal that we have in front of us today, Trump does admit it is not a complete nailed-down deal.
The final details are being written up in the coming weeks. We'll have it all very conclusive, but the actual deal is a very conclusive one. We think just about everything's been approved. So good for both countries, and we'll also receive new market access for American chemicals, machinery, and many other industrial products that weren't allowed, and they'll end up getting products that they'll be able to price, and if they like them better and we make great products, they'll be buying those products, but they were not available in the UK. Furthermore, in a historic step, the deal includes plans that will bring the United Kingdom into the economic security alignment with the United States. That's the first of its kind. So we have a big economic security blanket.
Now, again, announcing this deal, there's word out of the UK that some in the United Kingdom thinking, why is Trump rushing to make this announcement when it's not finally nailed down? And, of course, that gives a door open for those who want to criticize any efforts the Trump administration is making. And I will admit, a deal with UK is low-hanging fruit in the trade tariff wars. It is low-hanging fruit, but it obviously has to be done. Now, why does it matter? I'm looking at a piece written by reporters for the Axios, and they're lean left, but I think they've got their facts pretty straight here on this thing and not so much slanted. They're talking about how this is the clearest evidence that there does exist off-ramps and potential for de-escalation. But again, I will remind you, I will admit, the United Kingdom is low-hanging fruit in the trade war. China is going to be a much bigger deal. And there will be meetings this weekend coming up dealing with China, face-to-face meetings. What kind of details will come out of that, we don't know, and what progress will or will not be made. But the fact that there will be a meeting, that's a start. Dealing with the UK, as I say, there's no guarantees it's going to make the other deals a little faster, but it helps. So the details of this, it's a universal 10% tariff on UK imports that will remain. Tariffs on UK autos will be lowered from 27.5% to 10%, with a quota of 100,000 vehicles. The White House says the U.S. will get new access to U.S. markets, as you were hearing the president say, regarding beef, ethanol, machinery. The trade surplus currently reference the UK, $12 billion in goods. That's why many were not sure that Trump would be able to get anything and certainly not go after the UK, but he did. He said, we want a level playing field with everyone. Sebastian Gorka weighing in on his view.
It's big, it's historic. America is no longer going to be exploited by those who are gaming the global system. We're not going to be the piggy bank to those who are playing fast and loose with the rules of international trade. It's a big day here in the White House, as it has been for the last, whatever it is, 110 days. Just trying to keep up with the president is hard enough, but it's America first. This is the beginning of a tsunami of similar announcements that are just going to make the economy of the first Trump administration, which was the biggest the world had ever seen, look small by comparison. So this is really a historic day here at the White House.
And I would agree with that because there will be many more deals yet to come, deals that are in the making. And some are saying, well, Trump is going to have a harder time with it. But again, back to the Axios article, this shows there is an off-ramp. If nations want to get involved and work with us, we will work with them. And we all can benefit. As I pointed out, the U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent and Chief Trade Negotiator Jamieson Greer will be meeting with China's economic czar this weekend in Switzerland to talk about how they can reach a deal with trade tariffs with China. And in the meantime, there's talk of the U.S. trying to come up with a deal with Iran. Now, this is not a trade deal. It's much more important than that, and yet they're not completely separate.
While trade talks move ahead with China, the administration is holding out hope for a nuclear deal with Iran.
We think that there is a deal here that would reintegrate Iran into the global economy, that would be really good for the Iranian people, but would result in the complete cessation of any chance that they can get a nuclear weapon. And that's what we're negotiating towards.
Okay, but something Iran won't be happy about. We expect President Trump to rename the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Gulf in coming days. Iran's foreign minister says that reflects what he called hostile intent.
Yeah, the Iranians will not like that. They want it to stay named as it is. But Trump wants to move forward, and so it upsets them. Now, of course, in dealing with Iran, you have to keep in mind the whole issue is we do not want them to have a nuclear weapon. There's a report that shows satellite imagery has detected one of the nuclear bomb-building missile facilities in Iran. I'll get to that in a moment, but before we go there, we have two nations, even as I speak, that have nuclear weapons, and they are at war, and it appears to be escalating.
Tensions remain high between India and Pakistan. This morning, Pakistan says its air defense system shot down Indian drones in the eastern city of Lahore. Meanwhile, India says it, quote, neutralized a strike by Pakistan.
Pakistan's military says that it did shoot down drones, 12 drones, saying that they were Israeli drones produced from that country, flying in from India overnight. And it says that they were dispatched to multiple targets across the country. This includes Karachi on the coast, that's the country's biggest city, Lahore again, and Rawalpindi, which is just south of Islamabad. And that's important because that is the headquarters for the army.
The headquarters for the Army, so obviously, if they can strike that facility, they can strike almost anywhere they want. Now, some will be interested in that fact that drones apparently that India was using were from Jerusalem, from Israel. I don't know the full background on that, but that's going to be a point of contention moving forward and see who's going to take which side. All we do know is that we need to tap this down. India and Pakistan have been at war over their borders for years, but it escalating from time to time, and death count so far, at least at the last check, 100 dead. And that's scattered numbers between India and Pakistan. I mentioned the satellite imagery revealing the Iranian nuclear weapons facility. This site is located on a province far from the regime's already known nuclear facilities, according to the National Council of Resistance of Iran. Intelligence gathered from sources inside the country points to a sprawling compound covering nearly 2,500 acres, codenamed Rainbow Site by Iranian officials. Been in operation for more than a decade, masked as chemical production company of some type. Fox News is claiming that the exclusively obtained satellite imagery reveals what clearly is an undisclosed, never before acknowledged Iranian nuclear weapons facility, which obviously is going to raise fresh concerns amid the ongoing negotiation between Tehran and the Trump administration. And you heard earlier Vice President Vance talking about that we still need to have some kind of deal with Iran if we can find it that would deal with their Iranian nuke plan, but not to a nuclear weapon. According to the National Council of Resistance of Iran sources, the primary function of this Rainbow Site is the extraction of tritium. It's a radioactive isotope used to enhance nuclear weapons. This is unlike uranium enrichment. It has no peaceful or commercial applications, which cast more concerns about Iran's long-standing claims. All we want to do is have nuclear power to bring our people out of the Stone Age and into the modern world, when we all know what they want to do is build a nuclear bomb and be able to deliver it. And that's why the issue with India and Pakistan keeps coming right back to us. If you get a nation that might be unstable in any position, or more than unstable, but determined to take out the Western world and Western applications and so forth, and they have a nuclear weapon, India and Pakistan, between the two of them, have 300 plus nuclear weapons. They can be delivered by missile, ship, planes, and that is right in the center of a hot area. Now you get this into the Middle East, with Iran having nuclear capability, not going to happen. But again, Vice President J.D. Vance, speaking yesterday, said despite this bombshell intelligence coming out, senior officials in the White House and the Pentagon remain optimistic that they're not going to do anything immediately that we have to be concerned about. Not that we don't watch, But at the same time, we're not going to let them get to that point. So today, of course, we have white smoke from the Sistine Chapel. And I'm going to spend more time on this later. Those of you that are Catholic, obviously, you're anxious to know everything you can about it. Now, they reached this decision on the second day of the conclave. This might have been, and I'm not sure if it's the third or the fourth vote. And then you had white smoke from the chapel this morning, which says a pope was selected. And one of the photos that was taken, this is kind of thing you could almost say timing is everything, yep. And I'm sure it wasn't Photoshop, but it deals with the white smoke coming from the Sistine Chapel chimney, and as the shot is captured, there is could be a pigeon, but you could also look at it as a dove flying past the chapel chimney. It is, in fact, a great point. So we'll have more on that coming up for you. I also want to let you know that in our next hour, how progressives just will not learn. An example of how Newsom continues to destroy California. And later in this hour, Kash Patel goes before Congress, and a Democrat congresswoman decides she is smarter than Kash Patel, and then what she does shows, no, I don't think so. And if you want to hear anger and cry and a gnashing of teeth, it happens. It happens with the Democrats anytime they do not get their way, especially the progressives. Letitia James, current New York Attorney General, is obviously under investigation for fraud. The same Attorney General who went after Donald Trump. And when she gets in front of an audience that will listen to her and applaud her, she goes off the rail. You'll hear that coming up a little bit later. But in our next segment immediately, the author of a new book focusing on what he calls the genius of Elon Musk. He's got a lot of background and detail. And we will have in our interview with him a discussion of the subsidy money Musk got from the federal government. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
In all these years that Wellington Environmental has been my sponsor, I've never mentioned their duct cleaning services. Allergy season is here, and Wellington crews clean air ducts daily in homes and commercial buildings, also cleaning air handling units and diffusers in commercial facilities. Why? Well, because people will see black dirt and mold on the vents, or they are actually suffering from allergies. Don't be fooled by low-cost duct cleaning providers saying they charge only per vent, because once they get on site, the price will skyrocket. Wellington does not do this, never has. Wellington will give you an estimate, and you say Larry Connors, and immediately you get a 20% discount. Call Cindy, 314-644-4930, 314-644-4930. Make your home and business better, safer with Wellington. Be well with Wellington. Ackerman Toyota is #1 in sales for 2024. That is 2 years in a row. It's really no surprise. Ackerman has the largest customer lounge where you can relax, take your time choosing new or premium pre-owned. Ackerman at Hampton and 44. AckermanToyota.com. Thank you for making Ackerman Toyota #1 2 years in a row. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota for life. John Beal Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Beal has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Beal. The Oak Street Inn and Lounge has some great news. The Speakeasy will now be open on Sundays, starting at 2. Open to the public. Great for those in the industry who'll want to enjoy a Sunday fun day. Plus, enjoy sushi and cocktails. What more could you want? You want to make sure you get the code. And how do you get the code to the Speakeasy? You go to the Facebook, Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook. I'll see you at Oak Street Inn and Lounge in Cottleville.
This is News Talk STL. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
There was a time that the left loved Elon Musk because he was pushing EVs, electric vehicles, and everything else he was doing. They loved him. And then when he teamed up with Trump and became heading up the Doge department, they turned on him immediately. And yet they also want to point out, his detractors, how he took subsidies from the federal government for various projects to get them off the ground, and what happened to them. Well, a guy that can give us a full layout on that is Dennis Neal. He's author of The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk. Dennis is a media strategist, award-winning journalist, host of What's Bugging Me podcast. Dennis, welcome aboard.
Thanks so much for your time, Larry. It's a glorious day. And is my timing impeccable on this book, The Leadership Genius of Elon Musk, or does my timing turn out to be terrible because he has been so pilloried and so demonized by so many?
Now, let's talk about that since I brought up the subsidies. Musk did get a $465 million loan from the U.S. Energy Department, but he said he paid it off 9 years earlier. But that was, as I say, $465 million. But his other companies, Tesla, SpaceX, got something like $38 billion in government funding, and I don't know where that stands with contracts, loans, subsidies, tax credits, and so forth.
Well, let's understand that $38 billion, and I haven't seen that figure. I do know that he paid back that entire government subsidy, paid it back, whereas plenty of other new energy outfits simply went belly up and never paid any of it back. All the billions they got from the government. That's first, and then second, he is a government contractor because without SpaceX, there would be no NASA.
Right.
At all, essentially, and he's lifted 7,000 of his own satellites into the sky to build that wonderful SpaceLink satellite network, but he also puts up government and CIA satellites and self-flying shuttles that can go 450 days. Just taking solar energy and recording whatever they want to record without ever landing. He's launched that for the government. So he gets paid for a service. And he's dominated the worldwide space industry because he's the best at it. When the government needed to eventually rescue 2 astronauts that Boeing stranded up at the space station there, SpaceX rescued them. They could have done it right away, but of course they were told to wait. And then the media didn't cover that, did they, Larry? They covered instead the 6 women in tailored jumpsuits who went up into near outer space for 11 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, they were very much like Shepard had called the early astronauts. Not Shepard. I'm drawing a blank now who it was, but basically that spam in a can. They couldn't do anything. They just went up and they came back down. That's all they did. And that is what we were doing originally with our original space shots. Right. Although we went higher. Right. They were claiming that they did the same thing that Shepard did, but they really didn't. They didn't go as high or as deep into space as he did. Now, reference Musk. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, well, Elon dreams so huge, right? I mean, does anyone realize, did the media even cover that near the end of 2026, that's when you open up this once every 2-year window to get to Mars. You can get there in like 9 months. He's going to launch a Starship and he's going to have an Optimus robot on there, and he's hoping to get it all the way there and have it walk around on planet Mars. Now, is that cool or what?
That is.
Why isn't that a page one story?
Now, some will be saying, but is he using federal dollars or private dollars? And what's the value of us subsidizing? Go ahead.
That's private dollars. 25 years ago it was. He went to Moscow. He had scored $200 million in the sale first of PayPal to eBay, and he took $100 million instantly and invested in wanting to get to Mars. And I have a chapter in my book that talks about how he goes there with a guy interviewed for the book, and the Russians spit on his shoes when they realize he thinks they can buy their rockets to get all the way to Mars. They thought it was preposterous. But then he proceeds to build SpaceX and destroy the Russian space business. SpaceX is the dominant world supplier now.
Now, to that extent, back again, you're listening, by the way, to Dennis Neal, and we're talking about the leadership genius of Elon Musk, his new book. And in that, you're referring to the advice from Musk, often tease your critics, torture your enemies.
Yeah. I come up with 11 lessons of Elon, one lesson per chapter. And that lesson is I believe it's chapter 4. Yeah. And, he gives back as good as he gets. And one thing he said in an interview once with Business Week, because Business Week, I think it was Bloomberg, saying to him, you're kind of mean to some of these just regular Joes out here who come out and criticize you, smack back. And he said, well, I've always felt like if you're going to respond and say some trash talk on social media, you are stepping into the arena, and you are agreeing to certain allowed combat. And so he tries to, pull himself back from trashing people, but sometimes he just can't help himself. But I think that it is time for bluntness and honesty and raw directness. I think that this country almost lost its way because not enough of us would stand up. That's another lesson. I think it's 6. Free speech is everything. Stand up and be heard. Everything changed when Elon Musk was forced by a Delaware judge into buying Twitter, going through with the deal that he tried to back out of.
And you know what? This being the May 8th, the 80-year anniversary of VE Day, and there was a survey just recently across Britain asking British citizens, how many are you willing to fight for your country? And 48% said they would not fight for their country. I think around that 24% of them said not for any reason would I fight for my country. And yet 80 years ago, they were trying to just survive in the UK. These folks just don't get it, don't understand it.
Well, you get comfortable, don't you, after a good 70 years visit without being bombed, without being invaded? All the people who remember what that was like have passed, I guess. And so there's a complacency there. And there was maybe that kind of a complacency here in the United States. 40% of us tell survey takers that we're afraid to post online, afraid of being canceled. And what I'm hoping is, I talked to a great PR executive, crisis type of person the other day at brunch, and she pointed out, this whole getting canceled thing, it's gone, it's over.
Boy,
Trump has basically destroyed it. No one's fearing that
it.
more at all. Isn't that refreshing?
It will be. And I mean, they will try to still rise up, but they've still got, they're like a cockroach. You got to find each and every one of them because they will outlast everything if you let them live, and you can't let them do that.
Well, look how many times they've come after Pete Hegseth, and recently, when he was right in the middle of a second scandal over a signal call, horrors, never mind that it is encrypted. He came out, and instead of ducking or apologizing or trying to defend off, he suddenly came out and said, you know what, we have a new policy, no walking on eggshells. And that's a perfect example.
Ed Martin is apparently going to be pulled by the president for the D.C. district attorney. And if that happens, that just shows that the swamp is still alive.
Where are you hearing that he's going to be pulled? I just finished my podcast that comes out tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? No, it comes out later today on Tom Tillis. I call him Tom the Thong, so I can remind people that he spells his name Thom. But are you sure? Is this new? I missed it.
I've been watching it. I've been watching pieces come in with that, and of course the Pope being selected today. But I'm getting to the bottom of a lot of it is right now still trying to sort it out as well. So I think your podcast. I think your podcast will be good for tonight. I hope anyway. By the way, reference Elon Musk. You're talking about his work ethic. He does say that if you work impossible hours, make the others keep up. I like that idea. It's kind of like the boss tells the employee, says, "I'd like a better parking place." Well, then get here earlier.
Yeah, well, the great thing about Elon is that he leads the way, right? He slept on that factory floor in California when they had to hit a new goal for producing the Model 3. And for 3 months, apparently, on the hard floor, he intentionally didn't bring in a bed. He wanted his workers to know that he was willing to suffer as much as they were suffering to get this done. And, right now, a lot of young people, they shun hard work.
Yeah.
Young men, 15% of young men who are around 25 years old are utterly detached from the workforce, and they have not had a paycheck from a company in over a year. 15%, and that is twice the portion it was 20 years ago. What are they doing? Surveys show they're at home playing video games.
Yeah. And, I've said that. Get out of your beanbag chair, put down the Cheetos, and go out and get a job.
Exactly. There's something like 8 million job openings right now.
Yeah.
And 38% of the able-bodied under age 65 workforce, 38% are at home, not in the workforce, not looking. They don't count as being unemployed.
You have watched this as also the senior editor of the Wall Street Journal and managing editor of Forbes. You have seen how the economy has been handled by previous administrations and the willing to work and not willing to work. In the last 30 seconds, how do you think Musk is mustering people around him with the drive to be the best you can?
The things that Elon Musk is achieving will redound for years to come. It's already at 160 billion a year. That's 1.6 trillion in 10 years, but it's just a start. It's changed the entire mindset. It has even government people thinking in a new way. They never cared about how they spent our money. They better care now.
Yeah, and to that extent, I think he's done a great job. But as I point out before we introduce you, he's still got those on the left that when they did love him, they loved him just like Trump. Now they hate him with all the success they have. Dennis Neal.
They sure do.
Dennis Neal, the leadership genius of Elon Musk. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Have a glorious day. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir. Coming up, dealing with more with the papal decision, obviously, and also FBI Director Patel. Stand by, please.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I've got a phone number for you and a website where you can take a free, quick survey to learn how to use artificial intelligence, AI, to put your company on a fast track to the future. Here's the number. It's a 636 area code, 636-689-0545. 689-0545. This is PRI Global. And recently, the St. Louis Business Journal named PRI Global as a leading IT consulting company. 25 years working with hundreds of companies, several Fortune 500, locally and around the world. PRI Global has its own AI lab to develop what's best for your company. Take the free survey and be on your way to the future. 636-689-0545. 689-0545. Or go direct PRIGlobal.ai. PRIGlobal.ai. You want the best place to watch baseball or any sport and be able to enjoy premium cigars and whiskeys? Lit Cigar Lounge. Lit has so many events each month. You need to constantly check the Lit Cigar Lounge Facebook. You don't want to miss anything. Plus, you can order food from Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, delivered within minutes right to your table. By the way, we're in the season for great patio dining. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta has your table waiting. Renewal by Andersen has a great deal for you. $279 off every window. $729 off every patio or entry door. No payments. 0 interest for 18 months. Andersen products increase a home's value by at least 15%. Renewal by Andersen is the full-service window and door replacement division of Andersen. RBA STL. RBA STL. Hey, if you're 50 or older, you do not want to take any risk with your money. In fact, you want Leslie Consulting. My friend Bob Leslie can show you a gain and retain plan. It means that you never lose. Plus, you get up to a 20% bonus on day one. Leslie Consulting, a leader in brokerage and risk management. 314-721-0066. LeslieConsulting.com.
This is News Talk STL.
All my friends know the low rider. The low rider is a little higher.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
It's been a day of festivities and into the night in Rome as the Vatican announced a new pope had been selected. And keep in mind, they took 2 days to select this new pontiff. That suggests they had a leading candidate that quickly impressed his peers from the beginning. And this being the third, I'm not sure if it's third or the fourth vote. And immediately the crowd started going to St. Peter's Square, the Swiss Guard marching through the crowd, and all of them shouting out, "We have a new pope." Well, and more on that story coming up in our next hour. Here in the U.S., we have progressives still trying to target anything Donald Trump does. A perfect example happened in Congress when you have a member of Congress with Kash Patel testifying ahead of the Congress about what he's done and what he sees needs to be done with the FBI. And you have a member of Congress who wants to call out what Patel has been guilty of in so many different ways. And what she's trying to do is make it appear that he might be weaponizing the FBI. Well, that backfired immediately.
As you and the president continue to weaponize and investigate his perceived enemies, as you follow this blueprint, when can I, a former impeachment manager, expect the FBI at my door?
Ma'am, you want to know who was targeted by a weaponized FBI? Me. You want to know how and why?
Well,
you want to know what I'm doing to fix it?
That. Let me move on.
Well, you should read the book because there's no enemies list on that book.
So
there are
you-
people that violated their constitutional obligations and their duties to the American people,
That's good. You
and they
gave
were
them
rightly
process.
called out.
I'm
And you
changing
should
topics.
give that book to every one of your constituents so they can read about it.
She's not likely to do that, Congresswoman Dean. And yeah, she was part of the impeachment inquiry and everything else, and the J6. And she said, "Now I'm looking for the FBI to show up at my door." And he says, "You know who was weaponized, who was attacked by the FBI before we even sat here? That would be me." And he's correct. And every conservative voice, organizations, churches attacked. As the FBI was under direction then of liberals who wanted to carry out their agenda, and the best thing to do with Americans who will not conform is to shut them down. And yet they want to call out Trump for being a dictator. Fascist. They don't know the meaning of it. So Congresswoman Dean continued with her little scurry with Patel, and again, she's trying to make a question, but it's going to blow up in her face.
Should we worry more about your memory or your veracity?
We should worry more about your lack of candor. You're accusing me of committing perjury. Tell the American people how I broke the law and committed a felony. Have the audacity to actually put the facts
then
forward
the answer is
instead of
both.
lying for political banter so you can have a 20-second
answer
donation hit.
The answer is both. I believe that the
The
men and
answer is
women of
you're failing, not me.
That is true. You're failing, not me. And the fact that he said, all you're trying to do is get a little banner that you can use in some of your commercials going forward. Like, look how I took on Kash Patel. I will guarantee you, whatever she uses from that, it will be closely edited to make her look way better and smarter than Kash Patel. That's the only way she's going to come off and make it appear that way, and that is with judicious editing, slanted editing. In the meantime, we have our protests taking place, obviously, still at universities, and they are fighting back, and they've been told that if you do not get control of your anti-Semitic attitudes on your campus and the rallies and everything, Trump will hold back federal grant money. Harvard's already gotten the message. And now the Harvard president, of course, offered, quote, an apology. That's one of the Ivy League schools. They want that money. And what, again, infuriates me, they don't need our federal tax dollars. They're sitting on endowment funds that could carry them and their university and students way into the future. But they want you to contribute your tax dollars. Fox News reporting on one of the latest events at Columbia University.
They shoved past campus security as students were preparing for finals, and they injured at least 2 public safety officers. The students said that the protesters demanded the Ivy League school divest from Israel. The protesters reportedly rallying in support of Mahmoud Khalil, one of the accused ringleaders of the pro-Palestinian protest at Columbia. Well, more than 80 people were arrested. All were students, according to the NYPD. And ICE is monitoring the situation. If arrests were made, the suspects were fingerprinted to determine if they were citizens or not.
And the key point there is, if they are foreign students in our country and they think they can come here and cause mayhem and chaos, Antifa has also joined with some of these protesters. They were backing police down a street the other day, and police were trying to maintain calm, but these protesters just kept advancing on them. The only thing the police could do is retreat. Well, of course, that's exactly what the protesters wanted, and it makes them look strong because the videos of that, I would guarantee you, got shipped all around the world, especially for the Mideast Hamas terrorist type. Look what we're doing here. And Columbia University the other day announced, well, we're going to have to lay off about 180 people because we're not going to have the grant monies and everything we need. Do I feel sorry for those people? I'd feel sorry for anyone who loses a job. And many of them might have been, they're just carrying out true scientific benefit grant money issues. They're not involved in politics of any type. They're actually doing basically university type work that you should be doing, expanding education and for our nation. But then there are those that probably were some willing to speak out and challenge Jewish students on campus. So when they announced, Columbia University announcing they're laying off 180 employees, again, this is a university that has a rich endowment fund. They do not need federal dollars. And so these protesters are out there, as they also did the other day up in University of Washington, Seattle, trying to do anything they can to go after Jews and Israel and Western civilization. University of Washington the other day, they stormed their way into some buildings and threatened people and were saying the university had to get out of any involvement, any money invested in Boeing stock, which is a big, big employer in Seattle. The Ivy Leagues have reached the point where they think we are untouchable. And I want you to consider something. You're not going to like this, but I want you to consider, what if Trump had not been elected? This kind of stuff would have continued. If we had just 4 more years of where we were when Biden left office, I do question what our country would be, what would be left of it. At this point, we have put flags in the ground and said, this is a line. We're not going to do it. You're going to start backing up. We're not going to bow and bend the knee to you anymore. Nor should we. I also remind you that a lot of these leftist ideologies, if they were put in a place like Gaza with Hamas rule or any jihadist rule, those people would lose their head. under Sharia law. Do you see students protesting in any of the Muslim countries for anything? No, you don't. And these students obviously are not educated to any extent about the world. They've been indoctrinated to just follow the mob, be another member of the sheep. I mean, when they're putting up signs, queers for Hamas, they wouldn't last 30 seconds in the hands of a country that is enforcing Sharia law. Not all countries that have Muslim religion as their base practice Sharia law. Iran and all of its proxy agents to destroy the world, they do. And they would destroy anyone and everyone in their way, as you well know. And here's something else to keep in mind. Whenever the leftists find that they are accused of wrongdoing, they go berserk, and I mean berserk. That story when we continue.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
The Napoli heritage of fine dining continues with Napoli Kirkwood. Napoli Kirkwood, now open. So add that to Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C, and don't forget about Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the district, Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, plus now, open, Napoli Kirkwood.
This is Larry Connors, USA. Larry Connors, USA.
And you want me to sit in my seat and stand idly by and allow this craziness to happen? You can come after me if you want, but you elected me to stand up. You elected me to use the law. You elected me to go to court. You elected me to continue to challenge this administration. You elected me to stand up for the least of God's children. You elected me to continue fighting on, and I will fight on.
Letitia James, you elected me and blah, 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 blah. In that one line she said, to stand up for the least of God's children, then how do you square that with that you are a big advocate of abortions? There's the least of God's children, those waiting to be born. Already conceived, not yet born. But Letitia James, because charges are being filed by the Attorney General's office and looking at fraud that might involve her, suddenly, no, that's weaponizing the law against me. No, it's not. It's actually enforcing the law. When I hear the left cry out, no one is above the law, there stands Letitia James. I'm above it, and many others like her. And they will not yield. They will not yield. As I had mentioned the other day, Trump had wanted to rename the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. We've mentioned that several times. Well, the House took a party line vote today to officially rename the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America, to codify President Trump's executive order that he signed on that. One Republican, Congressman Don Bacon, Republican, I had to use the term loosely, Nebraska, voted against the bill. Democrats denounced the move because they thought it was going to cement Trump's executive order renaming the body as a waste of congressional time. Yeah, suddenly Democrats are worried about wasting congressional time. Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Speaker, said, when the American people woke up this morning, they could reasonably ask the question, what are their elected representatives on the floor of the House of Representatives going to be debating? Well, Hakeem Jeffries, what were you debating when Trump was in office? You were constantly looking to bring Trump down. Impeach, impeach, impeach. And you're still trying to do it. Now, what will happen with the Senate Republicans? It does not appear they will make this bill a priority. It will need at least 7 Democrat votes to fight off a filibuster. and asked if the Senate should take up the legislation. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republican, South Dakota, said he hadn't thought, quote, that far ahead, and asked, does it take Congress to do that? Obviously, he had not thought that far ahead. Now, that's dealing with the Gulf of Mexico. In the meantime, Trump has announced plans he really would like to rename another Gulf. This would be the Persian Gulf, renaming it the Arabian Gulf. This is right before he makes a trip to the Middle East. This is not good news for Iran, but who cares? But it will make many of the Arabian nations feel special. They're happy that he's considering renaming the Persian Gulf the Arabian Gulf. That does not mean it's going to happen worldwide or in that region, regardless of what he signs or puts in place here and whatever, even if he got full support for that. But as far as the Gulf of Mexico, the executive order of Trump did say it is no longer the Gulf of Mexico, but the Gulf of America. The effort to get it through Congress to codify it so it cannot be overturned by the next party in control, that's still up in the air. Well, as you well know, the Cardinals selected a new pope. When we come back, we'll be talking about the success. This is going to be big, as you already know. It is the first American pope. We'll have more details for you on it in our next hour. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call to John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. Great patio season to enjoy any of the Cafe Napoli locations. How about the Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield? Enjoying coal-fired pizza, nothing else like it. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. A few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, where you can enjoy premium cigars and whiskeys. Check the Lit Cigar Lounge Facebook for details, plus gift cards for friends. I'll see you at Lit Cigar Lounge in Chesterfield. Ackerman Toyota is #1 in sales for 2024. That is 2 years in a row. It's really no surprise. Ackerman has the largest customer lounge where you can relax, take your time choosing new or premium pre-owned. Ackerman at Hampton and 44. AckermanToyota.com. Thank you for making Ackerman Toyota #1 2 years in a row. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota for life. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. I can tell you how to get a free quick quiz to see how artificial intelligence can boost your company's potential. You go to PRIglobal.ai, PRIglobal.ai. St. Louis Business Magazine listing PRI as one of the leading IT companies. And PRI has its own AI lab to develop what your business needs. PRIglobal.ai. PRIglobal.ai.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
Qui sibi nomen imposuit leonem decimum quartum.
This is stunning. It is an American, Monsignor.
Again, a great surprise. An American, the prefect of the Congregation of Bishops, who born in Chicago, an Augustinian from a religious order, but moved to Peru as a missionary, and an amazing surprise for the church and the world.
Absolutely stunning moment.
It is a stunning moment. The Pope being selected today, born in the U.S., from Chicago, and part of his ministry was spent in South America. He's 69 years of age. Obviously a U.S. cardinal prior to this being selected. And what does it say about the selection of an American to serve as a pope? Well, we'll spread some of that information around for you as we move forward, because with him also taking the name of Pope Leo XIV, the choice of a papal name is very big for a pope once they make a decision. We have not seen anything so far with full details of how he made that selection and why, but I'll give you more details on the name he did choose as we move deeper into the newscast. I say the newscast, that's kind of what it feels like. It is Larry Connors USA, second hour. Glad to have you with us. And reminding you, when we're on the air, we are streaming video. You can watch the program. How do you do that? You go to NewsTalkSTL, Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, Larry Connors USA, Rumble, Facebook, and everything goes up as a podcast later at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, or Larry Connors USA Facebook. And reminding you, with Larry Connors USA, you obviously get news, analysis, opinion, and education. You will leave this hour with more information than you had when we began. Glad to have you on board. So when the white smoke came from the chimney at the Sistine Chapel today, there was an eruption of applause, and folks began rushing to St. Peter's Square if they were anywhere nearby. And you've got a lot of Americans that are in Rome touring and so forth. Even if they're not Catholic, they're anxious to be part of it, of this main event of the papal selection. Now, one of the decisions was to choose a cardinal that would lead the church forward. That had to be part of the decision in the back of the mind of the cardinals. So by choosing an American missionary, Robert Prevost of Chicago, who has spent his time ministering in Peru, now the first American pope in the 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church, once again to some of the remarks from the Basilica.
Il Papa che benediva Roma dava la sua benedizione al mondo intero, quella mattina del giorno di Pasqua.
On that morning, on that day of Easter Sunday.
Consentitemi di dar seguito a quella stessa benedizione.
To continue
Dio
that
ci
same
vuole
blessing.
bene. Dio vi ama tutti.
God loves everyone.
E il male non prevarrà.
Evil will not
Siamo
prevail.
tutti nelle mani
We
di
are all
Dio.
in the hands of God.
Pertanto, senza paura,
So without fear,
uniti,
united,
mano nella mano con Dio
hand in
e
hand,
tra di noi,
with God and among ourselves,
andiamo avanti.
we go forward.
And he addressed the crowd in Italian and then also did it in Spanish. The population, at last check, of the Catholic Church is a staggering number, and of course, all across the face of the earth. You're looking at 1.4 billion Catholics. Many of them are Hispanic and related in that area and are Italian, but also American. 1.4 billion. Now, again, the Chicago Cardinal, Robert Prevost, who had been serving as an American missionary, ministering in Peru, now the first American pope in 2,000 years, and he chose the name Leo. The last pope, the last pope to have the name Leo without any additional numbers to it was more than 100 years ago, and that would be Pope Leo XIII, who led the church from 1878 to 1903. The first pope of the name, Pope Leo the Great, led the church from 440 to 461. What kind of pope could he be? And since he chose that name, many are saying that because he chose Leo, it suggests that we're going to see a more focused church, maybe back more to an issue of dealing with the Catholic religion and where it stands, not only with inside the religion, but outside in reference to the world. As you recall, Pope Francis died after a stroke on Easter Monday, aged 88. That was a reference Cardinal, or now Pope Prevost, or let me correct it again, Pope Leo the 14th was referring to, as you heard him mention Easter. When that white smoke came out of the Sistine Chapel chimney today, and the Swiss Guard began moving through the St. Peter's Square with a band, the crowds were coming from everywhere to be there as the Pope stepped out on a balcony at the Vatican and addressed them. And they're still looking at additional reaction.
A stunning moment here in Rome as Robert Francis Prevost has been elected the 267th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, and he has taken the name Pope Leo XIV, becoming the first Pope ever from the United States and defying the conventional wisdom that he would be elected.
Defying the conventional wisdom. No one's even hinted that there could be an American pope chosen this time. Not one. So it comes as a major surprise. We'll focus on this story in more detail later. In the meantime, this morning, President Trump, by the way, he did acknowledge that he wanted to send his congratulations to the new pope, saying it's such an honor to realize he is the first American pope. What excitement. What a great honor for our country at the same time. And I look forward to meeting Pope Leo XIV as soon as we can. Well, today, Trump announced a major trade deal with the U.S. and U.K.
Just because it's challenging doesn't mean that we don't do it. Prior administrations said.
Once again, the President Trump today had this trade deal that he worked out with the U.K. Many of them were saying that was such a low-hanging fruit. He could have certainly gotten that out earlier. Some are complaining that he did announce it this soon, but it was announced today.
With this deal, the UK joins the United States in affirming that reciprocity and fairness is an essential and vital principle of international trade. The deal includes billions of dollars of increased market access for American exports, especially in agriculture, dramatically increasing access for American beef, ethanol, and virtually all of the products produced by our great farmers. In addition, the UK will reduce or eliminate numerous non-tariff barriers that unfairly discriminated against American products, but this is now turning out, I think, really to be a great deal for both countries because it'll be really great for the UK also. So they're opening up the country. Their country is a little closed, and we appreciate that. They'll also be fast-tracking American goods through their customs process, so our exports go to a very, very quick form of approval, and there won't be any red tape. Things are going to move very quickly both ways.
Both ways between the U.S. and UK and the U.S. And again, in this case, Commerce Secretary Lutnick telling reporters today, we started at 10%, we ended at 10%. That was how the deal was worked. And that's a universal tariff of 10% on all UK imports will remain in place. Tariffs on UK autos will be lowered from 27.5% to 10%, a quota of 100,000 vehicles. The White House says in return, the U.S. will get new access to the UK markets for various reasons. Now, even though the president announced this deal, he also acknowledged there are fine details that still need to be hammered out. President Trump.
The final details are being written up in the coming weeks. We'll have it all very conclusive, but the actual deal is a very conclusive one. We think just about everything's been approved. So good for both countries, and we'll also receive new market access for American chemicals, machinery, and many other industrial products that weren't allowed, and they'll end up getting products that they'll be able to price, and if they like them better and we make great products, they'll be buying those products, but they were not available in the UK. Furthermore, in a historic step, the deal includes plans that will bring the United Kingdom into the economic security alignment with the United States. That's the first of its kind. So we have a big economic security blanket.
And that economic security alignment, the security blanket, as referred to by President Trump, is important. And you should make note of this date. This is May 8th. 80 years ago on this date, it was declared victory in Europe. Britain had been under assault by Germany during World War II. 70,000 Brits died just in London because of those consistent nighttime bombings carried out by the Germans. And our alliance with Britain, and of course at that time also with Russia, helped put an end to the machinery of Hitler and also the Japanese emperor, I should say. So when President Trump is talking about this deal with the United Kingdom with one of our closest, most cherished allies, is understandable. And I think it's notable that, again, it is announced on this date, the 80th anniversary of victory in Europe. As Trump said, when we won the war together. So the deal will include billions of dollars of increased market access for American exports, especially in agriculture, dramatically increasing access for American beef, ethanol, virtually all the products, as you were hearing them say, reference our farmers. So the farmers who were, in the beginning, you were hearing the left cry out, oh, he's going to sell out the farmers. No, he was not going to sell out anybody. And small businesses will also be boosted in the process. President Trump said this is the economic security alignment, the first of its kind. There are those who still think he will not accomplish anything else, and they're surprised that he has this. And, of course, they're going to point out it is not finalized. That is correct. No sense getting into an argument over it. But as far as concluding this and moving to additional countries and wrapping those deals up, which apparently several negotiations have been underway and papers exchanged, the Council of Economic Advisors Chairman Stephen Moran.
Yeah, so I'd say a couple things. First, Secretary Besson and Ambassador Greer are fabulously talented negotiators. The president has put together the best economic policy team in history, and I have faith in them to represent America over there. Now, the second thing I'd say is the president is famous for his negotiating skills. He's one of the best negotiators in history. He's got an entire career of negotiated deals, and I think that many people didn't think that he was going to be able to pull off the Phase 1 deal with China during his first term. And you know what? He did. He pulled that deal off. He pulled it out of a hat, and it was a fabulous fabulous deal for America. It had intellectual property considerations. It had chapters on market access. It had chapters on Chinese purchases of agricultural commodities from the United States. It was a great deal. And you know what? It's a shame the Biden administration walked away from it and didn't enforce it and threw away the president's accomplishments. But you know what? He's a great negotiator. And if anyone can make this happen, it's him.
I would agree. But, of course, it has to be done. Getting the UK, as I said, was low-hanging fruit. Negotiations starting this weekend with China. Face-to-face meetings between Besant and our trade ambassador and China's representatives. I would not expect anything solid to come out of this weekend. But the fact that we're meeting and talking. This goes back to what Trump has been saying. China wants a deal. They want to have a deal. According to Trump, there were ships loaded with Chinese goods out in the Pacific that were turning around and going back to China because they knew they would not be able to push their products once they were unloaded in the U.S. And there have been reports that 5 to 10 million Chinese have been forced out of jobs as factories were closing. This is not something that can happen overnight, making the trade deals nor the repercussions. But it does state a clear statement that we are going to make sure we have fair and trade rules, not just benefiting you. And also in the House, they passed a vote pretty much along party lines, except for one Republican that stepped to the other side, to basically codify President Trump's executive order renaming the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. Now, that will go to the Senate, not sure when, and the Senate majority leader is not sure if it's even needed, listening to him talk, but if you're going to codify it, you're going to have both houses do it. Why would they want to codify the executive order? So the next president in, if he's a lefty, pray that he's not, but they will not be able to simply wipe all this out with a signature of his pen. And in the meantime, Trump is also saying, I want to see us rename the Persian Gulf the Arabian Gulf. That is upsetting to Iran. They want to keep the Persian Gulf name. Arabian nations, though, are going to really like it because next week the president will be traveling to Saudi Arabia, where he will make that naming announcement and then visit Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. They're happy if he renames the Persian Gulf the Arabian Gulf. I'm not really going to care about what Iran thinks. Still to come, we have many in this nation that are doing everything they can to destroy what we stand for. And I've got a guest coming up that has written a book talking about the twilight of California, how it's going into demise because of Governor Newsom. I don't think anyone can argue that point. You'll hear that as we move forward. And we'll have more on the selection of the new pope. A lot yet to come. You don't want to go anywhere. Lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
I want to tell you more about Wellington Environmental's dustless blasting services. Wellington can blast paint, grease, graffiti, even stripes off parking lots. Truly amazing and powerful. But can Wellington blast something more sensitive? Yes, Wellington can use dry ice to blast soot and odors off smoke-damaged surfaces right after a fire. Currently, Wellington uses dry ice to clean mold off wood inside a home. Why? Well, dry ice immediately disappears, turns into a vapor. That means no mess to clean up, no damaged surfaces. You need to check with Wellington, always researching and practicing with new, better, faster, safer equipment and products for you. And it's very easy to schedule an estimator for your next project. Call Cindy, 314-644-4930, 644-4930. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. I've got a great evening planned for you. We start with dining at the Oak Street Inn Lounge in Cottleville. We enjoy sunset on the rooftop, then down to the speakeasy. Just one visit, you're going to see why I'm always talking about the Oak Street Inn and Lounge. Plus, you might want to plan a staycation, a romantic getaway. Check out OakStreetInnandLounge.com for various events this summer. Oak Street Inn and Lounge, Cottleville. Oak Street Inn and Lounge, Cottleville.
This is News Talk STL.
Roxanne, you don't have to put on the red light. Roxanne, you don't have to put on the red light. Roxanne.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Welcome back. My guest we've had on before, Christopher Moritz. He's the author of Failed State, A Portrait of California in the Twilight of Empire. And Christopher, glad to have you back on board with us, sir.
Oh, delighted. Thanks for your...
We were talking before you joined us again about how the leftists continue to do everything they can to destroy our nation. And if you want a prime example, you can look right at California, which you've done a great job with on your book. And you're talking about at one point about how they were going to force everyone to pay much higher prices. Devil be damned. Gas prices, oil prices, whatever else.
Yes. I mean, clearly, the regulatory regime in California is so convoluted and so vast. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of regulations. We're talking about a 40% increase in the value and cost of building just by regulation factor. These policies, along with crime policies, are not accidental. It's not just mismanagement. It's not simply ideological capture, I think, because when you get to a point where the outcome is clearly determinative and the outcome is also foreseeable, so the harm is foreseeable, you now enter the realm of what I think is appropriately willful negligence by the leaders of California.
And yet it's not negligence, is it? I mean, they know exactly what they're doing, or do they really not understand cause and effect?
Well, I mean negligence in the legal sense, whereby an act is foreseeably harmful, right? And you have a duty to prevent that harm.
Right.
And so it's willful, right? There is an element of specificity, and there is an element of intent, right? And I think that there's different actors at play that have created the conditions by which a one-party state had happened, but and they have different. Right, they have different interests and motivations for why they would support, for instance, soft on crime policies,
right.
Emptying out jails, decriminalizing whole swaths of the penal code. Within the legislature, you have extreme far radical leftists that come from essentially a Marxist-Leninist critical race theory type of approach. But then you also have the financial interests and the power interests that are promoting these kinds of policies institutionally. And what is the motivation for them? I think that becomes a more interesting and a perhaps even darker question.
Well, you are a California native. I'm sorry, you are a California native. So you watched this great state where you grew up and everything go into this absolute abysmal pit, driven into it, basically. Where do you think the first cracks started when you look back over the last several decades?
So here's a statistic I like to cite for people, and I think it's a very stark contrast. In 1994, when California passed the 3 strikes law, which created very stringent consequences for repeat criminals,
right?
Send them to jail for 25 years to life on their 3rd offense for a serious or violent felony. That was supported by 72% of Californians. Jump forward to 2014, Proposition 47 comes to the ballot, and this is the bill that legalized stealing, it's been called, but it reduced theft of $950 and under from a felony to a misdemeanor, and effectively legalized stealing.
Right.
That passed by 60% of the voters.
And
So
that was in
what
a period of
happened
20 years,
then?
right?
Yeah. So what happened in that 20 years? I think demographics are a big part of it. I think it's hollowing out of industry and aerospace and defense manufacturing leaving the state, taking with it a lot of middle class, more moderate voters that have resulted in consolidation of power in Northern California, in historically progressive milieus and power centers. So that seems to be a big part of it. But the cracks on the crime side started in 2010, 2011, when we began emptying out our prisons, both because the Supreme Court found that California prisons were in violation of the 8th Amendment because of overcrowding, but also because institutions like Stanford and the likes of George Soros and other financial parties aligned with progressive causes started making this a centerpiece of legislative policy, which is, again, the so-called crisis of mass incarceration, which is just a euphemism for emptying out jails of violent criminals.
Right. And then, of course, you had the propaganda that began to come out of Hollywood, the very Hollywood where Ronald Reagan had a star.
Right. Right. Well, it's funny. Hollywood has been sort of recently kind of body slammed by the fact that Los Angeles, and actually throughout the state, but Los Angeles in particular, has made it so difficult to actually film in the city and in the state too. Whereas other states like Georgia and other countries offer enormous tax incentives to bring that business there. And so it's funny, these Hollywood people are sort of bemoaning the regulatory state that they helped create and propagate.
Yeah. And why are they so against Trump he says, I want to save Hollywood. But I tend to think that Hollywood has to save itself because of what the crap they're putting out.
Right. Exactly. I think, that's a whole separate issue, right? The malaise of that industry. I mean, look, let's just take Disney, for instance, right? The paramount sort of expression of Americanism and Americana is now deeply corporate, deeply cynical, committed even to the against any kind of market indicator, to the woke DEI agenda, inserting that into all their films. Why are they doing it? I mean, we see how much, like the Star Wars franchise, for instance, has lost in terms of value over the period in which Disney has owned it, and yet they continue to double down on this crap. Why? I don't know. I wish it's the $1 million question, right?
Well, it's a multi-billion-dollar question. You're right about that. Now, the other thing is, very quickly in our last couple of minutes, Los Angeles still trying to recover from the fires, and Mayor Bass, I saw a report, you have to confirm this, that basically they were telling these homeowners who have lost their homes, if you don't clean up your property and make it look better until you rebuild, and of course trying to get permits rebuilding and the cost regs you have to go through, that she's basically punishing them a second time. And of course, how much did the climate basically, and I'm talking about political climate in California, create that disaster for LA?
Yeah, well, look, this is another great way to frame that issue. The head of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, who was responsible for the maintenance of the reservoir that served the Palisades, called the Santa Ynez Reservoir. That reservoir was dry for at least 7 months prior to the fire due to fixing a cover over the reservoir. So a basic just capital expenditure, and they failed on that regards. But yet this same head of the DWP, who's making $750,000 a year and is a good friend of Karen Bass, has not been terminated. But you know what? She's very good at burning cities down, because her last job before this was PG&E, which was responsible and has been held liable for the incineration of Paradise, the town of Paradise, California, during the fires of 2018.
That was a power line company.
Accountability.
You're talking about the power line company, right? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So it's what you get in a single party state, right? There is a lack of competition. It's a monopoly. So you fail upward in California. Kamala Harris is the perfect example of that.
I mean, and the fact that Newsom now thinks that he has the integrity, and I use that word loosely with him, much less the political ability to run for president based on what he's done to California. How can he possibly?
I think he has the political ability.
Yeah.
He certainly has no integrity.
Yeah.
That's why people ask me, like, oh, he's progressive, but now he's trying to go moderate. Actually, I don't think he's anything. He's completely soulless. He has no integrity. He just it's about power. For many California politicians, including Kamala Harris, it is not about ideology. It's about power.
Do you think she could run for governor?
She's going to try. And the state is so screwed up. I could even see her winning. I mean, but, you know, sometimes societies just are determined to commit suicide.
Yeah. Christopher Morris, again, I want to thank you. Folks, the book is Failed State, A Portrait of California in the Twilight of Empire. Again, Christopher, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right. When we continue, we want to bring you up to speed on what's happening at air traffic control stations, as you might be planning some trips this summer in the U.S. or beyond. And, of course, more information on the latest Pope, an American from Chicago. We'll have that and more as we move forward and wrap up this hour. Make sure you stay right there.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
Question: are you looking to unlock the full potential of artificial intelligence for your business? I want you to meet my friends at PRI Global, named by the St. Louis Business Journal as a leading IT consulting firm. 25 years helping local and worldwide companies. PRI Global has a free survey to determine where your company stands in your AI journey. You simply go to priglobal.ai. priglobal.ai. And I also have a phone number, so get ready to copy that number. And I'll remind you that PRI Global has its own AI lab, creating, adapting, developing, pushing the boundaries for what AI can do for you. Here's the number, 636-689-0545. 636-689-0545. Or visit priglobal.ai. priglobal.ai. Here's great news. Napoli Kirkwood is now open. So that means fine dining right in the heart of Kirkwood. So you have the original Cafe Napoli in downtown Clayton, Napoli 2, Town and Country, Napoli 3 on the streets of St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C, plus Napoli Brothers Pasta and Pizza in the Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, and now adding Napoli Kirkwood. What a great place to dine. Napoli Kirkwood, now open. Renewal by Anderson wants you to know this. Anderson products increase a home's value by at least 15%. Renewal by Anderson is the full-service window and door replacement division of Anderson. How do you get through it? you go to rbastl.com. And here's a deal. $279 off every window, $729 off every patio or entry door. No payments, 0 interest, 18 months. RBA STL. You've worked hard for your money, so protect it. Meet my friend Bob Leslie and ask about the Gain and Retain Plan. Leslie Consulting, 40 years in the St. Louis area as a leader in brokerage and risk management. Call 314-721-0066, 721-0066. Oh, and ask Bob how he was the L.A. Dodger #1 pick. LeslieConsulting.com.
This is News Talk STL.
There's pigeons down on Market Square. She's standing in her underwear, looking down from a hotel room. The nightfall will be coming soon. Oh my, oh hell yes. You got to put on that party dress. It was too cold to cry when I woke up alone. I hit my last number, I walked to the road. Let's dance with Mary Jane. One more time to kill the pain.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Just because it's challenging doesn't mean that we don't do it. Prior administrations said it's too complicated, we're not going to do it. That is not this administration. It's going to be a lift. We are going to bring in the best companies in America to help us with this project, and they're excited to be part of this great American build-up. But this is the greatest build, the greatest project that the FAA has undertaken in its existence. What we're going to do in the next 3 or 4 years.
This is an effort to rebuild our flight control system across our nation. That was not just, I can't put all the blame on the Biden administration, but it did not help when they were pushing DEI for hiring traffic controllers, because a lot of traffic controllers that we need in position right now would have been trained and capable of moving to larger and more metro areas. And right now, those areas are suffering. One, with the number of flight operators they have, controllers, and 2, with their experience, and 3, because of equipment issues. You can't deny the equipment issues, and they've taken over decades. That would include the first Trump administration as well. You got to keep that in mind. I don't know if we just didn't realize or no one was listening to the cry out that we've got a big issue here. United has been cutting its Newark schedule. Hundreds of disruptions, as you know, the other day. United Airlines and FAA staffing said they had numerous miscommunications, and they had to cut down the number of flights arriving and departing so there was no disaster. For almost 90 seconds, one plane was out of connection, or rather out of communication with the control tower. They could not raise the plane could not raise the tower. Now, whether or not they could be seen on the flight controller's radar, not clear on that particular incident, because there have been so many. And then again, are the controllers capable? To that point, the chair of the House Aviation Safety Caucus is accusing the Biden administration of helping fuel the current air traffic controller crisis by pushing progressive diversity initiatives instead of modernizing the equipment. They made it a priority, and that is a fact. New York Congressman, Nick Langworthy, Republican, said the former administration's marquee bill was among several missed opportunities to fund a revamp of the AT system. He said, that was before I came to Congress, but you'd just mistaken priorities in all of this DEI policy, DEI staffing, it all got baked into the cake. He said they could have taken that money and spent it on real modernization of what is critical infrastructure in this nation. He pointed out we've had the longest period of incident-free aviation in the nation's history, where we did not have a commercial air crash from the time of a crash in Buffalo back in 2009 to what happened at Ronald Reagan Airport, a military helicopter flying right into a jetliner landing. And these staffing shortages continue, and they're going to add to the delays. Now we have members of the air traffic control have taken leaves, mental illness leave, possibly trauma leave, however you want to classify it. And it's understandable. If that's your job to protect the flying public and you can't count on your equipment to be right and you lose communication, you harbor the fear that you're going to be the one on duty when a plane goes down. And so a lot of them have been taking 45-day, quote, medical traumatic leave. Some of them might be milking the system. But I'll have to admit, even with those, they have to be concerned that if I'm on duty and for whatever reason I lose communication with a plane and there's a tragedy, do I want that on me? We're not talking about liability. We're talking about the weight of the job. And to that extent, our Transportation Secretary Duffy says we will make this turnaround.
First off, we need to get the best and brightest kids into the academy in Oklahoma City first, right? And again, you can't. We were waiting at the FAA a year and a half once someone took the test before they got a seat in the academy. Well, if you're 25 years old, you found a different job. We're expediting the process from which they take the entrance exam to the time they get a slot in the academy, and we're taking the best and the brightest, taking them first, right? Giving them a bonus, better pay in the academy and better bonuses when they come out. That's job one. But job two is air traffic controllers can retire after 25 years. So we're going to pay them a 20% bonus if they stay beyond their date of eligible retirement. We're going to give it to them up front, ask them to stay on. It's their patriotic duty. I think a lot of them will do it. So we're going to have more controllers staying longer, and those are the best controllers, the most experienced, as well as bringing more young people through the academy.
And that's what they need. They need more coming in. But as he said, if we were telling them, hey, we can't put you in because we've got to satisfy DEI, even though you're fully qualified and you're ready and able, you're going to have to wait a while until we get our DEI quota filled. And they do. They go off and find another job. That's Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy saying we will take care of it. The big news across the world today, we have a new pope and then the first American pope.
Qui sibi nomen imposuit Leonem decimum quartum.
This is stunning. It is an American, Monsignor.
Again, a great surprise. An American, the prefect of the Congregation of Bishops, who born in Chicago, an Augustinian from a religious order, but moved to Peru as a missionary, and an amazing surprise for the church and the world.
Stunning moment.
Stunning moment in so many ways. The first American pope in the 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church. Robert Prevost, 69 years of age. And he's taken the name of Pope Leo XIV. As he addressed the crowd at St. Peter's Basilica, he did it in both Latin and Italian and also in Spanish. But his opening words to the crowd at St. Peter's Basilica in the crowded square, peace be with all of you.
Il Papa che benediva Roma dava la sua benedizione al mondo intero, quella mattina del giorno di Pasqua.
On that morning, on that day of Easter Sunday.
Consentitemi di dar seguito a quella stessa
Allow me
benedizione.
to continue
Dio
that
ci
same
vuole
blessing.
bene. Dio vi ama tutti.
God loves everyone.
E il male non prevarrà.
Evil will not
Siamo
prevail.
tutti nelle mani
We
di
are all
Dio.
in the hands of God.
Pertanto, senza paura,
So without fear,
uniti,
united,
mano nella mano con Dio
hand in
e
hand,
tra di noi,
with God and among ourselves,
andiamo avanti.
we go forward.
And he was recognizing the death on Easter Sunday weekend of the previous pope. Now, choosing his name, Leo, according to Catholic scholars, the papal name Leo, unsurprisingly, shows a pope who's going to be strong during a time of crisis historically. The last pope to choose the name Leo was more than 100 years ago, Pope Leo XIII, leading the church from 1878 to 1903. The first pope with that name, Pope Leo the Great, led the Catholic Church from 440 to 461. By the way, Pope 11 had one of the shortest pontificates in history, lasting less than a month. And Pope Francis II had been recently asked what he would expect for a new successor. And according to some of those that follow this extremely close in the Vatican, they say that he would have signaled a continuation of his focus on pastoral care and the marginalized, but that Pope Francis even jokingly suggested his successor might be John the 24th. That would be a progressive pope of the Second Vatican Council era. But the new pope, born in Chicago, 69 years of age, chose the name Pope Leo XIV. And many have said this will be likely a continuation of Pope Francis's liberalization. Now, how that means within the church versus the world will have to be seen. But again, the news, right after the smoke, the white smoke was seen from the Sistine Chapel, crowds started gathering, and in time, the new pope was on the balcony overlooking the crowd in St. Peter's Square.
A stunning moment here in Rome as Robert Francis Prevost has been elected the 267th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, and he has taken the name Pope Leo XIV, becoming the first Pope ever from the United States and defying the conventional wisdom that he would be elected.
Yeah, that is the conventional wisdom. Nobody was even suggesting there might be an American made the new pope. The first American pope, or a pope from America, in the 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church. So he now leads 1.4 billion across the entire globe. As I said earlier, he paid tribute, speaking in Italian. That was a nod to his predecessor's direction toward inclusion. And he also said, "Let us keep in our ears the weak voice of Pope Francis that blesses Rome. The Pope who blessed Rome gave his blessing to the entire world that morning of Easter. Allow me to follow up on that blessing. God loves us. God loves everyone. Evil will not prevail." You were hearing some of that earlier. And then he also spoke in Spanish. That was in a nod of his work in Peru. And after his remarks, just standing there waving to the crowd, cheering for several minutes. Before he came out, the Swiss Guard had lined up on the square, a crowd of spectators gathering, celebrating, waving flags from all around the world. And then the one cardinal came out on the balcony to announce the new pope. And there was no doubt a lot of surprise. First American pope. There had not been one suggestion by anyone who is on top of the Catholic Church as to who might be chosen and that suggested it might be an American. The information about Robert Prevost, of course, is still rolling out about what he has done in his past, where he went to school, things of that nature. And in one report, I see that he had let me correct this. I think that information is wrong. Some of it's still unfolding. But he had, obviously being from Chicago, was an Augustinian friar and graduated from Villanova University in 1977. But he spent most of his work as a priest and then as a cardinal in Peru, which is obviously an example of dedication to the people. President Trump sending his congratulations and saying, I'm anxious to have a meeting with him and look forward to it. And when that will happen is not clear. You'll be hearing some rumblings about it in the near future. And we're going to continue to watch how the Catholic faith will react. And for everything I've seen so far, it's praise. And for Americans in particular, the American Catholics, to say, we now have an American serving as Pope. If he will take a conservative view and interpretation or a more liberal view, that will come as he moves forward. There's no doubt that he wants to make sure that the church continues to serve the poor, the needy. Regardless of your faith, you have to accept and pray for this man who's leading 1.4 billion Catholics. As always, thank you for listening, and remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can follow Larry on Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.